Episode 7. The action episode so boring that it made a 16-year-old fall asleep in the middle of the day. Fortunately, it's not like he missed anything. I watched this episode over a friend's house, and the man's 16-year-old cousin fell asleep 20 minutes into the episode. He woke up about 10 minutes before it ended, and it took about 30 seconds to explain what he missed, because basically, nothing happened. This episode is one of the weirdest ones, because Filoni throws away so many good ideas just to move the story along, even though the story is going nowhere. Prime example, Hera getting grilled by the Senate. The whole point is to set up that the Senate is full of corrupt people who are only interested in power. That's the deal with the Asian dude who talks down to Hera. People like him are presumably the reason why the First Order ends up happening. These people are so interested in maintaining their seats that they don't pay attention to the growing threats around them, like Thrawn coming back. Fine. So what you'd expect to see is Hera getting dressed down by this dude while Mon Mothma sits there powerless to stop it. You might even see Hera's snarky attitude used against her as a reason for a court-martial. You might also expect some kind of compromise, a last-minute save from a cameo character. Hera wouldn't be kicked out of the military, only demoted or restricted. That way she could still be the audience's window into the New Republic's corruption. Yeah, we don't get that. Instead, we get Hera just embarrassing the senators so much that the only proper response is a court-martial. That is, until a familiar voice is heard. Why, it's C-3PO, with a message from Leia Organa saying that she had Hera embark on the mission to find Thrawn, and Leia pulls rank as a leader of the Defense Force, which shuts up Mr. Senator, so all is resolved. Now, we can just set aside why it took this long for Leia to send the message to the Senate, or why she wasn't involved in any of this given the apparent threat, because this type of stuff is up her alley. The real problem is that Filoni just shut down all the tension of the threat of the corruption. All it apparently takes to stop these people is a word from Leia. That shouldn't work in a New Republic so corrupt as to ignore the potential return of Thrawn or the existing Imperial remnant. Technically, it shouldn't work in principle because they're not at war, so there's no reason why the head of defense should be able to pull rank on the governing body. But even if that did make sense, it still wouldn't make sense that any of the corrupt politicians would listen to Leia. We can guess why they're doing it, because Leia was an important part of the rebellion, but that should be in the show, not something the audience has to make up themselves. If we saw a couple of examples of people using Leia's name as a threat or a warning, then this would make sense. Without it, the scene just kills the tension of the looming threat. What a waste. Speaking of waste, back on Ahsoka's ship, Ahsoka trains while a hollow Anakin gives her pointers. This was one of the many videos he made for her during the Clone Wars, and as Ahsoka tells Huyang, Anakin was a good master. A redemption arc for Anakin Skywalker, 40 years after it's already been done in Return of the Jedi. Okay. I mean, this entire show has been built around the idea that people watch the previous shows and movies, so people would have already seen this in Jedi and Clone Wars. Of all the things we didn't need, this was definitely one of them. Anyway, Huyang and Ahsoka arrive in the other galaxy only to find the space around the planet is filled with mines. The space whales fly away, leaving Ahsoka and Huyang to dodge the mines. Thrawn has ships attack them, but Ahsoka manages to hide among the whale bones. Meanwhile on the planet, Morgan brings Thrawn a file on Ahsoka. He finds out that her master was Anakin, and then realizes the threat Ahsoka actually poses, that she's likely as unpredictable as Anakin, and so he decides to try to narrow her options so that the only choices she can make fit his plan. Does the show take any time to explain how Thrawn knows Anakin? Nope. So if you didn't read the comics or the novels Disney published about them meeting, you're shit out of luck. Why wouldn't you explain this to the audience? It only takes a couple of lines to establish their interactions, and it would make the scene make more sense. But maybe I'm asking for too much. Kinda like Ezra, who keeps asking Sabine how she found him, and she keeps dodging. He says that they could talk about something else, so Sabine brings up that Ahsoka took her on as an apprentice. Ezra wants to know if Ahsoka is coming too, and what does Sabine say? Let's talk about something else. Bitch, you brought her up. These are two things now that she's dodging, and still Ezra just lets it go. It's completely unbelievable that he just go along with this. She's so shady about this that you should ask questions, but not in this show. In this show, when people do things that make absolutely no sense, we just let it slide. Anywho, I forgot to mention in the previous review that Baylan and Shin teamed up with the discount Ronin who attacked Sabine. The Ronin lead the pair to the tiny aliens. Back with Thrawn, he has the Great Mothers try to find Ahsoka while Ahsoka uses the Force to try to find Sabine, and at no point do any of them sense what the other is doing, despite all their power. It's already established lore that Force users can sense when other people are trying to find them using the Force, often too late, but they can still sense it. How is Ahsoka not picking this up? More curious though is Huyang's comment about Ahsoka finding Sabine. He asks if she thinks her bond with Sabine is strong enough.
That's not how the Force works.
You don't have to be bonded with someone to be able to contact them through the Force. And if you do, it doesn't have to be that strong, because Vader was able to contact Luke right after he cut off his hand, and they don't even know each other. Understand, Filoni has been working on Star Wars for 2 decades. It's impossible for him not to know these things when he did them in his own shows. At any rate, the Great Mothers and Ahsoka do their thing. Ahsoka finds Sabine, and the Great Mothers find Ahsoka, so Thrawn has Enoch attack. Ahsoka and Huyang flee to the planet. Meanwhile, Ezra and Sabine notice that Baylan and Shin are standing on the ridge, and in a move that again makes absolutely zero sense, Baylan decides to ditch Shin and go looking for the special power he thinks is on this planet. Nothing in the previous episode made this seem like something Baylan would do, and his reason is just dumb. Shin's ambition will apparently lead her to the coming Empire, the First Order, and Baylan seeking a different power. And you notice this now. Why didn't this come up before? You've been with her this whole time. Baylan has been shown to be calculating and patient the entire time, and Shin has been nothing but loyal to him, doing everything he asks, so there's no reason to assume she wouldn't go along with whatever plan Baylan had. Like I said in my previous reviews, Baylan is the best thing in the show. The dynamic between him and Shin is also a great part of the show. Breaking them apart just wastes a great story dynamic for no apparent reason. I've seen the last episode, there is no payoff for this. It's just a wasted opportunity. Moving on, the Discount Ronin attack the tiny aliens, whose mobile homes can deflect blaster fire for some reason. Still, one of the homes goes down, so Ezra has the rest circle around it. Thrawn sends out some troops to get Ahsoka, who ends up jumping out of the ship to confront Baylan, who commits to whooping her ass. So I guess so much for all that training at the beginning of the show. But see, she didn't have to beat him. She just needed him to be distracted so Huyang could shoot the ground, raise some dust, and let Ahsoka steal Baylan's mount. And Baylan is like, oh well, and just goes off to do his own thing. You don't even want to try to help Shin? You didn't just abandon her that quick. Damn. Meanwhile, Ezra and Sabine face off with the Discount Ronin. Sabine tries to give Ezra back his lightsaber, but he refuses, saying it's hers now because of course he would. Fortunately, he doesn't fall into the typical useless man trope that's so common in modern media. He uses the Force to fight, and he's actually good at it. Then Shin shows up, and Ezra and Sabine battle her as best as they can. Ezra is even able to stop her lightsaber using the Force. Again, this is so against what usually happens now that I was waiting for him to get seriously injured or knocked out, but that doesn't happen. Neither of them are a match for Shin though, and when the stormtroopers arrive, Ezra tries to talk them out of killing him and Sabine. It doesn't work, so in comes Ahsoka for the rescue. Back at Discount Minas Tirith, Thrawn realizes that Baylan is missing and decides to call off the attack because its purpose has been served. The loading is almost done, so they can take off soon, and there's no way at all that Ahsoka will be able to catch up with them because she doesn't have the time. Hey, you know I can hear you rolling your eyes, right? Yes, we all know the trio will catch up with him. Anyway, Ahsoka offers to help Shin, but Shin runs away. Sabine gives another muted reaction to seeing Ahsoka, saying that she thought Ahsoka was dead, and now that she sees that Ahsoka is alive, Sabine just can't even. Ahsoka, on the other hand, is like,
"And miss this reunion?"
And again, she barely knows him. That looked so genuine for a minute I forgot they were acting. Meanwhile, Sabine is over here like, I thought you was dead, so I almost thought about shedding a tear, but that would be too much effort. If she cared any less, her name would be Grand Admiral Thrawn. And that's basically how the episode ends. Ezra questions what the hell happened with Ahsoka for Sabine to think that she was dead, and Sabine just ignores him. Everyone's perfectly calm and cool with the situation, no questions at all about Sabine's shadiness or betrayal or how to get home. Nothing. I can see how my man fell asleep. There's nothing to see here. The only things of substance that happened are so out of character that you're like, okay, whatever. And this is the action episode. This is the one that's supposed to get you hyped for the last episode of the season. If this is the lead-in, you know that last episode is going to be a hot mess. Just stupid things like people with laser swords trying to kill zombies by slashing them instead of cutting off their heads. Any other time you're just cutting off limbs, even Yoda took a nigga's head off. But these fools are over here slashing bodies like, why won't they stay down? Why don't you just, you know what? You know what? Wait, I'm going to save it for the final review. This show is just silly. It's like the anti-Star Wars. It's bizarro Star Wars. Mirror universe Star Wars. Hell, Ezra's already got the beard. But what do I know? I'm just some guy.